Welcome to Fuck, Marry, Kill, the podcast from SisterSong Women of Color Reproductive Justice Collective, where we show how everything is reproductive justice. Today I have two guests, sex educator and activist Lorena Banda, and our very own FMK producer and SisterSong education coordinator, Lori Rodriguez. I'm so excited to have Lorena and Lori on today to talk about Latinidad and how reproductive justice shows up in Latinx communities. Welcome, y'all.
Hey, I'm finally in front of the mic.
Yeah, I was gonna say Lori's got a new role today. So we start every episode with Game of Fuck, Marry, Kill. Lori has listened to us do it a million times. I'm excited for you to actually play.
I'm so excited.
Lorena, have you played before?
No, I haven't. Well, no, I haven't.
Really?
Yeah, I don't think so. Maybe like in high school, but I don't remember. So I'm gonna say no for now.
Okay. Yeah, I feel like I played a lot in high school. Okay, well, we're gonna do it with the three Latinx celebrities that I thought of off the top of my head. So Fuck, Marry, Kill, Bad Bunny, J-Lo, Sofia Vergara.
LOL.
Oh my god.
I have to kill J-Lo. I'm so sorry. I guess I'm marrying Bad Bunny.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'll fuck Sofia Vergara.
Do you agree?
Oh my. I don't even know. I feel like, okay, yeah, I would definitely marry Bad Bunny for sure. I would fuck J-Lo and then kill Sophia.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow, why are you killing Sophia?
Because Lori says she would kill J-Lo.
We're compensating.
Yes.
Yeah, basically Bad Bunny is the catch. If you're not Bad Bunny, like, sorry.
I'm gonna say it. I would marry Sofia Vergara and I would fuck Bad Bunny.
What?
Yeah.
Wow.
I just feel like I watched a lot of Modern Family as a kid, and I feel like I'm gonna get I feel like she's a great wife to that old guy.
Wow. But it's Bad Bunny.
I know.
Honestly, but Bad Bunny looks nasty in a good way, so
yeah, right.
I don't blame you.
I feel like you know what I mean? Like, I feel like I'm focusing on
you don't need
the
a
freak of it
fuckboy.
all.
You don't need a fuckboy as a husband.
Yeah, but I'm like, I know he's a freak. I know he's a freak.
I see.
Yeah, he looked nasty.
And I'm definitely killing J-Lo because I saw this movie that was so bad with Owen Wilson and her, and they have like this romance, and it's still like actually one of the worst movies I've ever seen.
I can't see them having any chemistry.
No chemistry.
That's so gross.
Yeah, it was terrible. So, you know what? Kill her in that movie. Okay. So, can you guys both start by telling us about yourselves, your background, and what you do?
Yeah, of course. So my name is Lorena Banda. I'm so excited to be here with y'all. My background has mostly been in electoral politics. So I got my bachelor's in social work from Texas State University. Then I started working in politics right after college. My first campaign was here in Texas for Jessica Cisneros. I was her organizer for San Antonio. Then I moved to New York City in 2020. And from there, I've worked on over so many. Honestly, I lost count. I'm probably at 11. But I've worked in New York City, Miami, DC. Most recently in Miami. I have my own newsletter where I talk about sex. I am on the process of rebranding, so I'm trying to figure out what that looks like. For me, I think I'm leaning towards more still talking about pleasure, but in all aspects when it comes to like mental health, fashion, sex, and all of that other stuff. So yeah, just really reworking that. And then I started working in reproductive justice whenever I got to DC. I worked for Emily's List for a while. And ever since then, I was like, yeah, I need to continue this work because I feel like a lot of times when we talk about reproductive justice, we forget to talk about sex. And I feel like those go hand in hand. So.
Yeah, totally. I feel like, so the SisterSong conference is called Let's Talk About Sex, but it wasn't always called that. And a big reason why they changed it to that was because it's like, we're always talking about reproductive stuff. We're talking about pregnancy. We're talking about babies, but we're not talking about sex, which is the thing that got us here.
Yeah, right. I know.
Exactly.
Yeah, I've worked in repro for a bit, and I'll do my whole intro spiel too. But like I remember like 5 years ago, like when I was talking about my job, I would like tell people I was like, yeah, I basically like make sure that people can have sex and like just not have like terrible outcomes from that. You know, I'm like I just want to make sure everyone's having like good sex. But yeah. My name is Lori. I'm the education coordinator at SisterSong. So I do our RJ 101 trainings. I also do our continuing educations. So if you're a member, every other month we do a training that's like building on RJ topics. You're more than welcome to join. We would love to see you there. And then I also am a writer and an artist. So a lot of my writing has been like more like art criticism. I also do poetry. I've done some like reflective like short stories and like poetic shorts. They've been like published all over the place. And I not all over the place, but just like in little places here and there.
Not stand on it. All over the place.
All over the place with my friend shit. And yeah, I also do a lot of photography. So yeah, a lot of my work is and I've been working like for money in our reproductive justice for a while now. But I've worked in reproductive rights. I've done campaign work. So I've seen like the more like political aspect of it, and I also like am very deeply grounded in like the more like poetic ephemeral parts of reproductive justice, and I really enjoy bridging those gaps.
I love it. So we are here today to talk about Latinx identities, and I was hoping that we could start with like a quick language grounding, just because I've heard you both and many others use different language to describe your identities and your community. I've heard Latinx, Latin, Latinidad, Hispanic, etc. So what language do you use for yourself and why? And do you see this language piece as important?
For me, I mean, yeah, the language is. I feel like some of it depends on where you are. So Latinx for me is something that like very much signals like Latinos in the United States. But if you go to Latin America and actually hear how people use like gender neutral language, they use Latin instead, and like words that are gender neutral will move towards having the e ending instead of the a or o. So I like to follow that. I'm like doing this to cater to people who speak Spanish. Like, let's actually follow the lead of people who speak Spanish in Spanish-speaking countries. And, as far as like my personal identity, I think Latinidad is like a good, like larger holder. But I personally am really digging into like what indigeneity is, because I descend from indigenous people. Like obviously there's a little bit of like, European and African there just because of the racial makeup of the Americas is. But like the people that I am from were people who were indigenous who were like erased. So like for me, like Latinidad is a continuation of that erasure, and like my personal journey in like understanding my racial identity has really been about like, all right, what does it look like to like ground myself in indigeneity, knowing that like I don't necessarily have like the kinship or cultural connections. And I do think that that's a conversation that I've seen like other like, people of indigenous descent from Latin America in the United States having, and it's a pretty cool one to be having.
Yeah, definitely.
I think for me, I agree with what Lori said too, like just identifying what group you're talking to and where. So it depends on like the, not community, but just where you're at. For myself, I use Latina. I think I don't like the word Hispanic, in my opinion. I know a lot of Mexican Americans like using Hispanic to identify themselves, and I think that's cool. Like whatever floats your boat, right? Like who am I to label you? But for me, Latina and Chicana is super important to me, because using Hispanic was, I think back then it was used as like a derogatory term. It comes from a derogatory term. I think it comes from spic or something like that. So I prefer not to use that. Whenever I'm referring to my community, I do use Latinx. I know the older generation feels some type of way. They prefer Latino, but to me, like, in order to make everybody feel inclusive, I prefer to use Latinx. And also, I'm in the process of trying to learn like where I come from. I love that Lori said that you know where you come from, like your DNA and all of that. And that's something that I really want to do because I have been labeled as a white Latina. And I understand like my skin is very fair. However, when you look at my facial features, they are not white. Whenever people say like white passing, I think of Canelo. I think of Anaí from Rebelde. But whenever I look at myself, I'm just like, I got big lips, big nose, and a high cheekbone. Like, I don't, that's not white.
Yeah, you don't have like European features, totally.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and,
yeah, exactly.
And just like one thing with me, like examining like indigeneity in Latin America and what it looks like, there are light-skinned indigenous people in Latin America. Like that is like an indigenous phenotype. So, obviously everyone's mixed up in all different ways, but like, yeah, it's like, are you European white? Or are you indigenous white?
Yeah, I appreciate y'all just kind of laying out that language piece for us because I want us to start there just so we can all be using the words that make the most sense for us, or more accurately, so I can be using the words that make sense for both of y'all. So, Lorena, you have a really wide array of expertise. You're talking about your campaign work, your sex and pleasure newsletter, all of that. But when I asked you what you wanted to talk about on the show, you said you wanted to focus on Latinx communities. Why does this conversation feel like one that was a priority for you?
It's super important for me because sex and pleasure and sexual health is still very taboo in our community. When people ask me if my parents know what I do and what I talk about, I tell them no. My parents are way older. My dad is like 74, and my mom is like 60 something. Like they're older. Growing up, we didn't talk about sex. We didn't have the birds and bees talk, but we knew that if we had sex, my parents would whoop some ass,
Right.
So
right.
I grew up very like scared to have sex. I didn't want to become pregnant. I didn't want to be the teenager that's pregnant, especially like growing up in a low income school that was almost like, I believe we were 98 or 99% Hispanic, and just seeing other young girls get pregnant at that age. I just wish somebody would have had these conversations with me from a very young age, because I feel like I could have made more educated decisions when it came to my body and my sexual experiences.
Yeah, absolutely. So your family does not know what you do?
No, they know that I work in like reproductive justice and like politics. But even to this day, my mom asked me, she was like, what do you even do? And I'm like, Mom, I work in politics and I help women run for office. Like, that's all you really need to know. Because I know how my mom is,
Right.
and she is who she is. She's older. She's not going to change the way she acts. And I love her, but she doesn't need to know all of that, because I don't want to have that conversation. It's not a conversation. It's a fight with her. So.
Right.
Yeah, I relate to that so much because my parents also don't really know what I do. My parents are not as old as yours, but there's definitely a culture of like people just don't talk about sex. Or if like you talk about sex, it's basically to be like, yeah, like men want to have sex, they're going to have as much as they want. If they cheat, that's just what they do. It's totally normal. And like women, like your life just sucks. Like just like make sure that like nobody touches you, don't get pregnant. Like that's kind of like the extent of messages I got around sex. There's like not, I also didn't get the birds and the bees talk. Like my mom like has not been interested in learning more about my career ever since I like went into like, ever since I worked for Planned Parenthood before I worked for SisterSong, like many years before I worked for SisterSong. And like once I started working for Planned Parenthood, my mom just kind of like shut down and was like, I don't know how to deal with this. Like, you're my daughter, I love you, but like I'm just not going to talk to you about your work. So yeah, very, very relatable.
I was gonna say my mom one time was telling me about like, I think there was some protest or something that women were doing. I don't remember enough about the context, but what it was that they were like, oh, like withholding sex from men. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, it's like a Greek play, like the Lysistrata or something
Okay,
like that.
yeah. And I remember telling me about that, and I was like, Wait, okay. If we like accept that as the reality of sexual activity, is that like it's something that women give to men because men want it, but women don't want it. Like I'm like, don't women also like to have sex? Like I was so like,
Women don't like to have sex. Women don't poop. Women don't smell bad. Like women just look nice and are nice to you.
and I love that. And I love that. And here's a fact about me: I've never pooped. So
I'm so dead.
But yeah, I thought that was like, I was like, that's such a like. My mom was talking about like it happening like in modern day, someone trying to do it again. And I was like, is that seriously like what we're like establishing as the relationship between women and men and sex? Is that men are taking it from us, you know? Like that's so, I don't like that.
I know. It's so binary, and it's just such a limited and like transactional and like ultimately like violent way to look at sex.
Right.
I think the like violence in sex is really, really normalized in like Latino communities, which probably has to do with like the colonialism, you know. But like, yeah, for me, like I'm queer. So like I knew I was queer basically as soon as I developed a sexuality. Like as soon as my hormones hit, I was like, oh, I'm so gay. So like all of these messages, like as soon as I got them, I was like, I know this is wrong because like I'm like, I'm not interested in men, and I know that like I'm interested in sex, you know? So like that was for me like that kind of like first break that I was like, oh, okay, like all of these ideas, like they just do not apply to me and I don't have to like hold on to them.
Right, totally.
I like what you said right now. I think it also goes back to like the spicy Latina stereotype. Like for me, I don't like angry sex. Like say I get in a fight with my partner and then we have sex right after. I'm not into that. Like if we're in a fight, like I don't want to have sex with you. I don't want to touch you. Like that's just not what I'm into. And I feel like that goes back to the spicy Latina stereotype, you know? Also what you see on novelas and other movies. But
Passion,
also,
like
I know we're talking about sex with other people, but how about sex with ourselves? You know, masturbation in our community is not talked about. You know, I remember my mom caught me with I don't even know what I was doing. My hands were in my underwear though. I was asleep. And I remember she just smacked me and she was like, no, that's dirty. So I correlated growing up, touching myself as being a dirty thing to do. You know, I didn't even know that women masturbated. I thought that was just like a boy thing to do.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I totally did not. I mean, I think I was in college. Like I had been having sex for years before I
Seriously?
sex for years before I ever tried to masturbate at all, because I was just like, yeah, that's not like, it just made me so like anxious and uncomfortable, and it's ridiculous. Yeah.
Wow, that's wild. I was the opposite. I was like so precocious. Like as like a preschooler, I like realized that I could masturbate, and I was like, this is awesome.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
I don't even know how. I know I was young. I think I want to say like I was 9 or 8, but I don't remember masturbating until I got to college. Like that's when I could really remember.
Right.
Because again, I grew up in a duplex. I have 3 older sisters. There's only 3 rooms.
No privacy.
So I shared a room with there's no privacy. So for me, like I don't have any memories whenever I was young masturbating. I only remember in college.
Well, I think, Lori, what you just said about being in preschool and stuff really speaks to also like, because me too, when I was like, I remember being in 2nd grade and being like, and like rubbing on a chair and being like, son of a bitch, that's amazing. And like, but like, I didn't know, obviously I didn't know that it was sexual. I didn't understand, like, I had no, like, I was just like, oh, that feels cool. And so like, I was doing that, but the moment I learned what it was, that it was sexual, that we weren't supposed to do it, like the stigma set in, and then I didn't do it to college. And I think that that's really notable too, is that like, it's like the act itself is so innocent and nothing until you project that meaning onto it, and then all of a sudden it's something that you can't do.
See, for me as a queer person, my experience was very different, but it's also like relatable in a way. But like, I don't know, for me, like I always knew I was different, so I already was like, all right, these like a lot of these messages don't apply to me. But like, y'all were getting laid in high school. Like, there were no other like queer people in high school. So I was just like,
That's so fair.
Wait, who's y'all? Because
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
like,
maybe it's just Simran.
I was
Like,
getting laid in high school because I was cool.
I
So
was like, who's y'all? No, I didn't start having sex until college. So
I probably started. I think I got like sexually active when I was like 13 or something, which is crazy because then you meet a 13-year-old and you're like, oh
my
a
God.
baby. And I thought I was so grown. Like I was like, oh yeah, like I was like a horny kid, and I was like, oh, I'm so ready to be a sexual being, bitch. What are you talking about? What are you talking about?
Lori just called us hoes.
Literally.
I mean, I'm a hoe, you a hoe, she a hoe.
Right.
Like we all hoes, you know?
Right. I'm 13 and I'm getting my pussy ate. What's the problem? By
Period.
another
Not
13-year-old.
Not 13.
So, Lori, what made you want to jump in on this conversation from your usual role that's behind the scenes?
Yeah, well, I'm Latin, and I have lived in Latin communities and have insights and would love to share them and talk about them. So, yeah, I'm really happy to, be in front of the mic.
I love it because a lot of times we'll be like having a conversation. I can see it in Lori's eyes that they have something to say and that we like, it's like, oh, now's the chance. Now's the chance to jump in.
Exactly.
So, how do y'all's Latin identities impact how you relate to reproductive justice?
That's a great question. Lori, do you want to go first?
Yeah, I'm just like reflecting on this. I don't think I don't think I really have sat with this very much because like my personal experience of like being Latin is like my parents are from Central America. So my mom is from El Salvador, my dad's from Guatemala. I grew up in LA, which in predominantly like Mexican communities. So even though I was like around other like Latinos, I knew that like we were not from the same backgrounds. There was always that like gap. So for me, like Latino has been like, yeah, I know this is like the category I belong in, but it hasn't really been a place where I feel belonging necessarily. So like my like RJ work really started in like wanting to like honor and uphold like Black and brown communities. And like it's like it's less more about like, let me uplift my community because I don't necessarily even have the ties to my community. Like I actually, like now that I'm thinking about it, I'm like, I actually don't know very many Central Americans and I'm not in community with very many Central Americans. Like I'm in community with a lot of Black people. I'm in community with a lot of white people. But yeah, like Latinidad, it like, it has been like this like more complicated topic for me. And like as I mentioned like in the intro, like the way I relate to it now and like the way it really like comes up in my work is like really trying to understand like Latinidad from the like lens and the angle of colonization. Because for me, like understanding colonization, more understanding that like, I descend from indigenous people, like understanding like more of like, why my mom would like, be like, oh, you should marry someone white, like what these things actually mean. Like unpacking all of those things has been really actually important in me understanding like just what RJ is and like how we like, I don't know, how we like talk about colonization and the way it impacts communities.
Did your mom want you to marry like a white Latina or like a white?
A white. Like before, like when I was like young, like before I was like a teenager, before I had like, developed a sexuality, like my mom would talk to me and she's like, Mija, like you should really, really marry up. She's like, you should marry a white man who's going to take care of you, who's going to have money.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, and it's this like very colonial thing where it's like, there's a lot of like Latinos who are like, who want to be white, who want to be European. And that's because it's like safer. It's like what the ideology encourages. Like the ideology says like Black and brown people, like they suck. Like they're poor, like they're ugly, like you don't want to be like them.
Right.
Yeah. So like, yeah, that's like the message I got growing up, but I was like, this does not apply to me. It's like, I don't want to marry a man.
Right. So that's the first part.
Yeah, and I'm like, second of all, like I'm not going into like a partnership with this idea of like, I'm gonna get taken care of,
Right, yeah. Right. Like, yeah, like your relationships aren't about like raising your status. They're about connection.
Exactly.
Sorry, I'm like thinking. So I'm like, how? Because I think this is a great question that I've also like I've thought about, but I haven't really fully thought about it. Um, Similar to what Lori said, I feel like even now, like I'm back in Texas, and I feel like I'm still starting to learn more of my culture and my background. Just because growing up, I feel like my parents really tried to like steer us away from Mexican culture just so we could be assimilated, I guess. I know there's this one moment, I remember I said I was Mexican and my dad was like, no, tú no eres mexicana. Like, you're not Mexican. You don't say that. You're American. And I didn't really understand that until I moved to New York. And at first I was like, okay, why would he say that? You know, like, I feel like he's taking me away from my culture. But really trying to understand him and sitting with that, with what he said, I'm like, he wasn't trying to take me away from anything. He was just trying to protect me because I don't know what my dad went through whenever he came here, you know, the racism, especially in South Texas, you know?
Yeah.
So whenever I was in New York, that's when I really started embracing who I was because I saw Dominicans and Puerto Ricans being so loud and proud about who they were and where they come from. And I was like, you know what? Hell yeah. Like, I'm Mexican, I'm Chicana, this is where I come from. And even also just looking at Dominican and Puerto Rican women, how they embrace their sexuality. So whenever I was in New York, I was a video vixen for a little bit. I did model for some videos for some local artists, and
Nice.
Slay.
my thanks. That's something I'm trying to get back into, but we'll see. But I was around a lot of Dominican and Puerto Rican women, and I just saw how they embraced their sexuality and their bodies, and I was like, wow, like I love that. You know, that's something that I really want to do. So for reproductive justice, I think for me, being Latina in this space is all about taking up space. I hardly come across other Latinas that are doing this type of work, are you know, are on boards for different organizations for reproductive justice or like sex therapists. So again, just for me, it goes back to just taking up space and telling people I am enough to be here. You're not just going to use my story and go do the work without me because I'm who I am is a very important part of the piece in order to see the change that we want to see when it comes to reproductive justice.
I love that during your like rebuilding your relationship to being Mexican, that during that process, something that was helpful for you is connecting with other Latinx communities. Like that's really special that you were able to find so much inspiration from other women and like be able to then use that to build your own more comfortable relationship to it.
Yeah, because growing up in South Texas, it's all Mexican. Like all my friends were Mexican. All of our parents were, well, most of our parents are from Mexico. My parents are from Mexico. So really getting out of Texas and going to places like New York City where it is more pleasure positive, I was like, wow, like I fuck with this. And like just seeing other Latinx cultures, I'm like, this is beautiful.
You're speaking a little bit to this right now, but I'm curious for both of y'all how your own relationship to your identity has shifted over time.
Um, Yeah, for me, it's just being more loud and proud of where I come from and who I am. Um, I'm still, again, still trying to learn about those roots. It's a little bit difficult for me to learn because I ask my parents questions, and my mom's a little bit more open than my dad, but my dad's very like, why do you want to know? And I've talked to my sisters about this, like, why is dad like this? Like, I want to know. And they told me that like, you know, dad grew up really poor. He probably just doesn't want to bring those topics up because it could be really hard for him to just remember, you know, the trauma. Like recently, I want to say 2 months ago, I was having a conversation with my dad about his brother, and he told me that he worked on the field. So my dad is a former farm worker, and I didn't know that until now, like 2 months ago. I'm like, that's crazy. Like I didn't even know that you did that. And he did that somewhere. It wasn't Idaho. Was it Idaho? I forgot where he said, but I believe it was like in Idaho, and then he moved to Texas and all this other stuff. So it's just crazy to hear like the different stories that are coming up now. And I think it just gives me more compassion for my community and myself too.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that a lot of the adults and or older people in our lives like don't tell their stories because they're painful, and there's a lot that you want to avoid or not think about. But I think there's also so much power in being able to share those stories with younger generations. Like they don't get lost then, and then people are able to learn from them.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, from my experience, there's just a lot of shame with those stories, because the people are basically like, we don't want to be working these jobs, like we have to, but like
Hmm.
they don't want to talk about it because they're like, I'm so much more than that. Like I'm not just a farm worker, you know. Like so, yeah, it's like a dignity thing, and it's also at least the way I see it and the way I've experienced it, it's very much a shame thing. Because like my mom was a house cleaner when I was like younger, and she doesn't talk about that ever. Like now she's a business owner. She like has a screen printing and embroidery business, and she's very proud of that. But she doesn't like bringing up that she used to clean houses, and that's because it's shameful for her. She's like, I'm fucking brilliant. Like, you know, I did like the like I don't know 1,000-mile journey to like get to the United States, like cross, like learned a language, and like here I am cleaning people's houses. So like, you know, I think for her that's part of like the element that's playing into it. But just to like get back to your question about how my identity has changed over the years. I think when I was younger, like yeah, grew up mostly around Mexicans, so I very much knew that I wasn't Mexican, but thank God I got to be blessed by Mexican food, and like, you know, learn how to like cook Mexican food, because like Salvadoran food, pupusas are really good, but like they ain't got nothing on Mexican cuisine, which is like, in my opinion, like Mexican cuisine is like, in my opinion, like one of the best cuisines on the planet. But yeah, when I was younger, like my relationship to like my Latinidad was that like I was like, I speak Spanish. I know that like my parents are migrants, but like I didn't know what that meant for me culturally because I wasn't Mexican and I was surrounded by Mexicans. So, you know, like I'm really gay, so like a lot of like my kind of like experiences with like understanding my identity and my culture were very much like, well, I don't know what it means to be Latino beyond like speaking Spanish. So I know that I'm queer, and I like very much rooted myself in my queerness. But I went to high school and I went to college predominantly with white people, and I didn't really get to develop a understanding of myself as like a person of color, as like a queer person who was, you know, POC, because I was surrounded by white queers. So, you know, that caused a lot of unnecessary drama in my younger life that I look back on it sometimes and I'm like, oh my God, the like dumb shit that I put up with from white queers just because I didn't understand like who I was.
Yeah.
Yeah. But like, I think like just where my like relationship to like Latinidad is now is like really rooting myself in like, you know, understanding myself as a person of color, as a person of indigenous descent, and like really, really trying to like build like with black people as much as possible. Cause like another thing that like happened because of my upbringing is just like a lot of anti-blackness. And that is like such
Hmm.
a pervasive and intentional like, you know, problem in the Latino community, that there's just a ton of anti-blackness. And that's also probably why Lorena, like being around like Puerto Ricans and like Dominicans was like just so different, because like Puerto Ricans and Dominicans, like they're just more black Puerto Ricans and Dominicans, you know, so it's like it's
Hmm.
a different relationship. But yeah, like that like unpacking the anti-blackness has been like really big for me. And, as you know, especially being at SisterSong, I'm like, I am like, my work is rooted in like, you know, following black leadership and like, you know, pushing back against anti-blackness. So like my relationship to Latino is like Yes, and it's a little complicated there. So like when I engage, I'm like, how do we like actually like start to like pull out like some of these like really intense conversations that are hidden under like generations of trauma.
Mhm.
How do y'all see that anti-blackness like showing up in Latinx communities? Because I know that like as an Asian person, it definitely is pervasive in our world too. And I know that like something that I think is really beautiful about SisterSong and was part of why I wanted to work there was because it's a multicultural, multi-ethnic collective of people who are fighting this common evil, which is white supremacy. And it shows up differently for us. It shows up differently depending on what you look like, your background. But at the end of the day, like the thing that we are fighting against is common. And I really appreciate that. I feel like that has a lot of solidarity within it. That really makes me feel a lot more inspired and powerful. And so I really wanted to be working at an organization that was focused on that, but that always had Black leadership. And I know Lori and I are the two non-Black POC staff members at SisterSong, and like very grateful to be trusted with that role. And
Truly.
yeah, yeah, and I'm so grateful to have the amount of Black community that I have, but it certainly is something that I'm like, oh, I feel like I am so surrounded by Black community, which is awesome, but it means that I need to take the time to actually unpack how anti-Blackness is impacting the way that I was raised, the communities that I am actually from too.
Yeah. No, honestly, like I love Black women. Like most of my most of the people that have uplifted me in my career have been Black women. I haven't had the best experiences with other Latina leaders, especially in that older generation, because I feel like a lot of that older generation is like, you're not going to do better than me or whatever. But I
Mm-hmm.
also think about my sister. Like my sister is of darker complexion, and something we haven't really talked about, but like I just remember like when we were younger, like her like not really. Now I know she's super proud of her complexion, but like growing up, like believe she was bullied because of her complexion and all of that. So I just think about my sister, and also just having those conversations with Black women in this space, especially Afro Latinas. I think including Afro Latinas in, obviously they need to be in this conversation. A lot of times when you enter reproductive justice spaces, you hardly see any, from my experience, you don't really see indigenous Latinas, you don't see Afro Latinas. So I think it's so important to make sure that we're bringing folks of that background. And again, just having those hard conversations with other Black women. I just had a conversation with one of my mentors about, because in New York, I was using the app Chispa. Do y'all know what Chispa is?
Nah, never
It's
heard of
like
it.
Hinge. So it's like Hinge. It's like Hinge, but for Latinos, for the Latinx community. Why I was using it, I don't even know. I was in New York, so I was like, let me see what this is about.
Was it a good app? Do
But
you like it?
oh no, it's like Tinder. It's like Tinder. I was like, no, no. I was like, it's too much. I rather use Hinge, but that's from my experience. But anyways, I was using the app and I saw the Haitian flag pop up, and I was like, oh wait, like are Haitians considered Latinos? Like that's just a conversation that I've never was educated about, because again, I grew up in South Texas. There's no Haitians or Dominicans or whatever down here. It's just Mexicans. So I was talking to her about this. I was like, do you identify as Latina? Like knowing what I know now, like you are 100% Latina, but I know like Dominicans and Haitians have like some sort of like beef or whatever it is. And I'm like, but y'all are on the same island. Like, I don't get it. So yeah, I think again, like what I said is just making sure that I have those conversations with other Afro Latinas, Indigenous Latinas, other Black women about how we could come together. Because I feel like there's a lot of times they try to separate us, but we need to be together.
Mm-hmm. Most definitely. And yeah, I'm trying to remember like just how anti-blackness has like manifested, but like yeah, I think I think like a lot of the original messages I got about anti-blackness like came from within the family. Again, both my parents are migrants, and my mother specifically would like I grew up in Los Angeles, which and like I grew up in Hood Light, so like not the hood, but like right next to it, and like yeah, you are like if you look at pictures for me from like elementary school, there's like 10, 15 black kids, like maybe 5 Latino kids, and there's like 1 white kid. So I was around a lot of black kids, and unfortunately, my mom was really anti-black out of her like migrant identity. Like, again, she like traveled to a different country, learned a language, was like working, as a house cleaner. And like she would get really frustrated sometimes. She would be like, I don't understand how like black people were born here, have citizenship, and still can't figure out how to like just make money. And yeah, she's not from here. She doesn't have the like political or civic education to like understand US history. And like she was just like, spewing white supremacy. And it's a difficult conversation to have because like she's like, I work so hard, I do so much, like I try to be good, and I'm not gonna let these like hoodlums drag me down. But that is unfortunately like one of the ways that like white supremacy keeps like marginalized people from actually being able to interact with each other. So I definitely bring those experiences into the kind of teaching I do. So like, I always like, especially around Latinos, I'm always like calling out anti-blackness. I'm always trying to make spaces to talk about it. And at the same time, I also think it's really important to unpack like Latinidad as this like POC identity, because what Lorena, you were saying, like, you don't necessarily see like indigenous Latinas or like Afro Latinas in these spaces. You see a lot of white Latinas, European descendant Latinos, people. And like, for me, it's been really, really important for me to like go into these spaces when I'm working with like European descended Latinos and be like, look, I know you have a different history than an Anglo European. I know that you speak different languages. I know that some of your experiences are race, but you are white. You have white privilege, and like saying that you're a person of color is like muddying these like what is actually happening. Like you're, like yes, your culture, but like let's look at like who's being oppressed. Let's look at the way that like Black and Indigenous people are actually being like genocided actively. Like it's not okay for you to occupy the same space, So like that has been kind of like the way that I've been bringing these insights into like my teaching.
So what do y'all think are the most significant barriers to advancing reproductive justice in Latino communities?
Just being open to talk about it. I'm just like, I feel like there's so many people that I've come across within our community that just don't want to talk about certain things. And I'm like, we can't just turn a blind eye, like we can't expect change if we're not going to have these very hard and uncomfortable conversations, and just being open-minded to others' experiences, So that's the biggest thing for me, is just, I think we just need to have conversations about it and have these spaces where we can come together and just build community around that. So this year I recently did an in-person event for my newsletter in Dallas, where we talked about sexual pleasure and weed and the passing of Prop R in Dallas. So marijuana is now legalized in Dallas. Like you could smoke outside, but you can't be like smoking in your car or whatever. But we talked about that and how marijuana can enhance pleasure for some women and some people. And it was mostly, it was catered for BIPOC women to come together, but we had a big Latinx community outcome that came to our event. And just the feedback that we were getting, it was like, oh my God, thank you so much for doing this. Thank you for creating the space. But it was mostly like that younger generation. When it comes to that older generation, whenever I was telling people what I was doing, they kind of just gave me like a side eye, like, you're talking about sex or you're talking about reproductive justice or whatever. So that's been my experience.
Yeah, and you're talking about sex and weed at the same time.
Exactly.
They're like, I'm definitely judging you.
That sounds like a really cool event. I'm glad. That it's awesome that y'all were able to do that.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, and yeah, I agree. I think that so much of it is just making spaces for these conversations to even happen, because I think my experience of like how these things go in like Latino communities is that they are just not talked about. They're not acknowledged, and like people just like move on. And like if you try to bring something up, they'll be like, why are you being disrespectful, blah 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 blah, you know. So like, yeah, like really really making the spaces to have these conversations, and then like just in like work that I want to do, and that like, you know, I care about really deeply, is making spaces to unpack like how white supremacy shows up in our communities. Because like, you know, you will unfortunately see something like a Latino becoming an ICE officer, you know, and that's white supremacy. So like the ability to like really unpack white supremacy, like really have like a community understanding of it, I think is like really important. And like, are we going to be able to like reach older people? I don't know, not necessarily. A lot of people like shut down with these conversations, but you know, as Lorena was saying, like with youth, there's like an incredible opportunity to like actually be able to have these conversations and just create a culture that like is more nurturing.
Have y'all read that book? Well, one, let me say keyword in what you said, acknowledge. I feel like our community really does ignore a lot of things, not because, and I think it just stems from trauma. I'm thinking about like immigrants and like immigrant parents, because there's certain things that are going on within my family right now, and we're choosing to ignore it. But I'm like, specifically, my dad, I call him out so many times. And he's like, no, 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 no. Like, he just ignores it. Like, nothing's happening. And it's like, wait, what? Like, it's not okay just to go by and, like, not acknowledge things, especially when it comes to, like, sex and pleasure and all of this stuff. Because it's like, how are we going to create change or, like, have different outcomes? And the second thing I'll say, have y'all read that book called Solito by Javier Zamora?
I have not.
I have not.
So it's a biography, I believe, kind of. Well, it's by Javier Zamora. He basically talks about his experience migrating to the U.S. as a 7-year-old from El Salvador. And y'all need to read it, because he talks about like whenever he's crossing the border from Mexico into the U.S., he sees a lot of La Migra, people from La Migra that look like him, and he doesn't understand it. So again, like what you said, Lori, just unpacking why so many of our members of our community become ICE agents, you know? And it's like, it's so weird.
I will definitely link that book in the description of the episode too, because that sounds like a really useful resource for folks.
Yeah. And
get your tissues ready though whenever.
Oh, I'm sure. Especially El Salvador. Like El Salvador is like tragic. Like right now it is like the heart of like fascism. Like in Latin America, they went from being, so El Salvador went from being the most dangerous place on earth. Like San Salvador, the capital city, had the highest murder rate like 15 years ago. So it went from being the most dangerous place on earth to the most incarcerated place on earth. Yeah. So
That's
like,
crazy.
yeah, the President Bukele, like, yeah, they have like a supermax prison there, and they basically just imprisoned like a quarter of the population, and it's safe now. But, you know, they're opening up the country to like Bitcoin investors and basically gentrifying the country, you know? So like, yeah, it's super complex. It's super sad. And all of that came out of a civil war that the United States caused,
Right.
you know? And yeah, people just don't have the civic education. Like, and like in El Salvador, for example, like you have to pay to go to school. Like I have a cousin who's an orphan and lives with my grandmother. She didn't go to school because nobody was paying for her school.
I feel like it really comes back to what you were saying too about your mom being like, I don't understand why Black people can't like get it together. Like if you don't have a political consciousness of things like this, like it is like, okay, why can't this country get its shit together? Why can't like the Middle East get its shit together? And it's like, Well,
I know, and it's so hard to explain because I'm like, yes, mom, I know that school is free in the United States. Yes, I know that you can apply for benefits. Yes, I know that all of these resources is here, but like you do not understand just like the actual like legacy
Right.
of like oppression and repression that is here, and like because you are not Black, you do not experience it directly.
Yeah.
You know,
And like how intentional it is too. Like I think that
Yeah.
there's like this like there's a lack of I feel like it's easy to view it as something like, oh, it's just happening. Like why can't these places get their shit together? Why can't these people get their shit together? Because it's just happening to them. It's like, no, but it's happening so intentionally. Like there's an active process that is keeping people in these positions.
And again, because like my mom is subject to those same forces just in a different way, just, you know, thousands of miles in a different place. She and other people don't have the tools to make the connections and see how like the oppression of Black people is completely related to the oppression of like Indigenous people. So, you know, that for me, like, oh, we need to make spaces for these connections to actually come through, because again, even like things like nationalism like still like are the dominant way that we think about our relationship to like Latinidad, you know, like what this means is that like me growing up around Mexicans, people be like Mexican la raza, you know, like, and they're really proud of their Mexican identity, which I'm like, yeah, I get it. Mexico's awesome. Like you should be proud, but like Mexico, like that entire idea of a country, like a nation state, that is a colonial creation. Like these were indigenous territories, and like there are lots of different indigenous groups in Mexico, and like it all gets collapsed into being Mexico under like colonialism. But like what's not acknowledged is that like once like, you know, the country actually became Mexico, that's when there started to be more oppression of indigenous peoples, you know? So it's like, all right, we gotta unpack this, because I'm like, yeah, I'm proud to not be American, but also to like overly identify with like the nationality, or to only go as deep as identifying with the nationality, is also playing into white supremacy.
I had a professor in college, a social work professor. The first day of class, he said, we cannot solve, what did he say? He was like, in order to solve other people's problems or like the issues of racism, right now what we need to focus is we need to solve Black issues. And we can't solve other issues until we solve those first. So I think that's why for me it's so important to always advocate for the Black community, and you know, educate myself and be in those spaces, because again, like I truly do believe that like we can't solve our own issues until we solve these other issues, because they do go hand in hand in different ways.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like that's so central to the reproductive justice theory, the reproductive justice movement. It's just that like centering the most marginalized people is good for everyone. And I think it's really easy to get into this like, okay, well, my experience is this and theirs is that, and thus we are not in community around this, when in reality, like being able to all come together for the people who are most marginalized would allow all of us to thrive in a different way.
Exactly.
Including white people. And men. Y'all both talked about this a little bit, but how have you seen the Latinx community respond to your work?
Yeah. Every time I have done an RJ training with like Latino communities, they have been totally blown away, and they've been like, we need more of this. Like, oh my God, like, where have you been? And yeah, I've actually gotten a few requests to do workshops in Spanish. I actually did a workshop entirely in Spanish in Oaxaca. I spent 5 weeks in Oaxaca, Mexico at the beginning of this year for an artist residency, and I did an RJ workshop entirely in Spanish there. And yeah, there were people from the local community who like showed up and were like, this is so important. Like, thank you so much for creating this space. Like, and like they were like, even in like our feminist spaces here, we don't necessarily get like the same like space to talk about these issues. So they were like please bring us more of this. So yeah. And you know, the group that I did an artist residency with in Mexico, they were in New York recently, and they asked me to do a workshop with them. So I think that there's a lot of interest, a lot of need for it, and I definitely want to figure out how we build the capacity to do it because I'm just one person.
I really need to practice my Spanish when it comes to like politics because my Spanish is very hood. I'm like Cardi B. My Spanish is very like
Spanglish.
like, cause
Pero like,
I love that. Yeah, cause I love that you did that, Lori, in Oaxaca. I think that's so important, especially there. Um, but for me, I think I've also had the same positive reactions, especially like with the younger generation when it comes to that in-person event that I did in Dallas, and when it comes to my newsletter. I have so many women reach out to me and just say like, "Thank you so much for even talking about this." Like, I'm glad I'm not the only one that feels
Right.
what you're feeling or what you experience. Because at one point, like I felt like I was the only one, and I think that's what's so important for me to share my story when it comes to my newsletter and my experiences. Not because I'm trying to be like an open book or whatever, but it's because I felt so alone in these experiences. And I'm like, okay, if I'm feeling like this, there must be other women that must be feeling the same way. And now even like I get random, not random, but like certain women come up to me on Instagram and ask me um certain questions about sex. You know, I tell them like I'm not a sex therapist or anything like that, but I can tell you what I experience or what I've done to help me get better at XYZ, you know. So I've had a lot of positive reactions, especially when it comes to the younger generation.
I love that. And I feel like that's so true that like it's so easy to feel isolated in your experience. And I think that when we talk about sex openly, abortion openly, I think people think that we're just being provocative. And I feel like it's really important to be like, no, this actually has like a long term impact on especially young people, but everybody just being able to go your whole life thinking that you were wrong or different or the only person having this experience when these are human experiences and like everyone's thinking it, you know, like it's so sad. It sucks.
and it's such a patriarchy thing because there's no taboo on men talking about sex. Like if you go to like men only spaces, like they say the nastiest, dirtiest, like sometimes scary shit. Honestly, like when like men's masks are off, like they say some rapey shit, you know. But like that's the patriarchy, you know, because there's no taboo on men having horrible conversations about sex with each other. There's a taboo about everyone else
Right.
having a conversation about it.
Yeah.
So it's
And
like,
also,
let's take the power back.
yeah, and it goes back to just being labeled a certain way. Like if you talk about what you said, being provocative, you know. I know I had this one experience. I would post about my newsletter on LinkedIn, but I stopped because of this one. Or it wasn't just one. It was because of this one experience. I had a man DM me. I feel like the newsletter was talking about oral sex or something like that, and like the taboos of it when it comes to like um, BIPOC women giving oral sex. And I remember him saying like, "Oh, can you give me some tips or whatever?" And I'm like, "Sir, no, like that is you could read my newsletter." Like it was just so uncomfortable. I feel like a
Yeah.
lot of times men have approached me because I talk about sex. I want to have sex with them. And it's like,
Yeah.
what did Evie Queen said? She said, "No quiero." What did she say? What's that song?
I don't
Yo
know it.
quiero bailar, whatever. Like just because like I dance with you on the dance floor doesn't mean I want to go home with you and have sex with you. Same thing. Just because I'm talking about sex doesn't mean I want to have sex with you. The fuck?
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like that's so true. That's like when women talk about sex, it's inherently like, oh, okay, so you a freak, right? Like, and like you want to have sex with,
Yeah.
you want to have sex with me. Like, we're gonna be like it is a really vulnerable thing to do because men do take it as an invitation, and that's super scary. Like to be able to be open
Yeah.
and honest about sex, like does potentially invite it does not literally invite men, but it does allow men to sometimes think about that they are invited in something, and that is like unfortunately a really shitty side effect of it. And like it shouldn't be
Yeah.
like that. And I wonder whether or not like if we talked about it more, would that be less true? Like what are the ways that we can impact
Yeah.
that?
I think it's so important to take back power about how we talk about sex because the thing about it being like so stuck behind shame is that, again, patriarchy for like men, it's like, yeah, it's blah, blah, blah. It's like a trophy. Like, and again, it's like always like in this like framework of violence. It's like, what can men get? And like, what do women have to give up, So like, I think taking back power from like, hey, it's not about conquest. It's not about like, violence, like this whole like pickup artist thing. It's not about like, it's not about that. Like, how do we actually make it about talking about the connection aspect of it, And like, obviously it's like fun, like it's hot, like it's silly. It's like sometimes it's weird, like, and like, it's like, let's take the agency back and being like, hey, like, these are the things that matter, like not the things that the patriarchy tells us matter, like actually like enjoying ourselves and keeping each other safe is what matters.
Yeah. So speaking of keeping each other safe, how is our very unsafe political moment impacting the way that y'all do your work? I mean, there's so much going on in Latinx communities. I know with the ICE raids growing, the xenophobia growing, like, has that impacted the way that y'all move in this work? Or does this feel like, a familiar moment in time?
Yeah, I cry every day.
Yeah.
Being 100% honest, especially just living in South Texas, it's just hard. It's really hard. It's honestly, I know the work that I'm doing is important and that we're doing is important, but it's really, 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 really hard to be present. I don't want to say present, but like, I don't know how to explain it. Like, the feeling that I'm feeling right now is burnt out and so much anger and sadness, because it's very triggering for me to see what's going on, especially when it comes to my parents. I grew up in a very predominantly immigrant community, and just to see state troopers and ICE agents out there, it just pisses me off so bad. Yeah. It makes me, I don't know, like, for me, I'm trying to show up the best way that I can right now, especially just being in this space already. But it has been mentally and emotionally hard to show up.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's where I'm at.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally relate to that because like, I've been doing this work for a long time. I've always like, I've been aware of just like, what the issues are, but like I like it's not only seeing like communities I'm around like be more directly impacted. Like, I still have family in Los Angeles. Like I still have friends in Los Angeles. Like I know that things are bad there and it's scary and like I have that in the background. But just like on a me level, like I feel targeted in a way that I didn't before. Like I have like a Latino last name. Like I'm like, oh, like I like it is obvious that they're being indiscriminate. So like the threat is a lot more pressing now. So definitely like navigating that and managing that and trying to stay grounded, and then really just trying to figure out like what are the like ways that we can build networks of support. So just trying to ground myself in that as much as possible. But yeah, it is not easy right now.
I appreciate y'all both for just like owning that pain piece of it. Like, yeah, you cry every day. That's so real.
Yeah, like honestly, I don't know, like, and I think it's so important to stay informed, and just keep up with everything that's going on. But honestly, like there's times where like I just have to, on my TikTok For You page, I just have to put not interested on those ICE raid videos because it's just too much. So like readjusting my timeline or just even taking time away from the news, from social media, because it just becomes so overwhelming. What's helped me is taking walks. I take so many walks. If I was not walking, I don't know what I would be doing. But yeah, walks have really saved me and just grounding myself with nature.
It really is a game changer. Just going on a walk like can so like snap your brain out of a spiral too. It's really good advice.
Yes.
What do y'all, and this is my last question, but what do y'all think that reproductive justice can really offer the Latinx community in this moment?
Some freedom.
Oh, yeah. Education. When it comes to our bodies and our choices.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I just see so clearly how like colonialism has like just ravaged our communities. You know, again, like my mom, like I love her, she's my mom, but like I gotta be real, like some anti-blackness, just some like, you know, stuff that I'm like, what is going on here? And like, you know, I think that like for our communities, like that is like one of the ways that white supremacy keeps us down, by like keeping us from being able to access like ways to talk about these things, like ways to identify that we're even being oppressed. So I think that this framework has a profound amount to offer to the Latino community. And yeah, like as Lorena was saying earlier, like the way that we reach, like, you know, like we like organize and like move towards solidarity is really through centering like Black issues in this country. So like,
Yeah.
for me, I'm like, all right, Latinos, like there's space for you and RJ, but like you got to unpack some stuff so that like we can all be in this space together.
Yeah, I agree. And I think it goes back to just like the education part. I think just thinking about the presidential election and just working in the space of campaigns, there's so many voters that I've come across that are so just, the voter education is really bad here. And I feel like people really need to understand like the electoral process. Like there was this one time I was knocking on a door, the lady was like, I only vote for the president or whatever. And I'm like, ma'am, you need to vote in the local elections too, because the president can't fix your sidewalk.
Right,
So
and that's
it's
where
like,
the real change is made. Totally.
yeah, like paying attention locally. So again, just education and just having those hard conversations and just remembering like what Lori said, we need to center Black issues first.
Yeah, and I feel like it is kind of crazy whenever I learn how few people vote in local elections, because I'm like, literally like 8 people are deciding the fate of this community. Like I'm like, the 8 people who decided to go out and vote are the ones who have made the decision. Like it's not democracy.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
And that's so, I think it's so by design, you know,
Yeah.
like which billionaire owns our like civics books, you know, like
Totally.
it's very intentional, and it's very sinister as well.
Yeah, it definitely is. Do y'all have any final thoughts before we wrap up?
Be a hoe, it's okay. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. I think the last thing I would say is just like figure out what pleasure means to you and how you can take up space in our community, in this world, in reproductive justice, and in sex, and in the bedroom.
Beautiful. I love it.
What was the question?
Do you have any last thoughts?
Oh, yeah. I do think that we're at a precipice. I do think that there's so much energy, like, and people are starting to see that, like, hey, like maybe things are falling apart around us. So I think that this moment is a call to like really, really, really get clear about what it is we want, and then, you know, start putting the steps to make it happen, because like, yeah, things are falling apart, but things have to get rebuilt. So like we could either like keep crying about the fact that everything's falling apart and get stuck in that misery, or like also see this as an opportunity to like make something different. And like, you know, obviously there's going to be like, you know, loss and like mourning that comes with that, but there's also like, for me, like hope that comes out of like, you know, we can do things differently.
That part. Mm-hmm.
Beautiful. I love it. Well, thank y'all both so much for doing this. And Lori, I hope you enjoyed being on the other side.
I sure did.
Thank you.